So hi, welcome to Encoder Reviews. This is Tyler from Encoder Reviews, and I have been on a sort of semi-hiatus for the past few years or so because I've been working on a book and not necessarily on this YouTube channel, and I decided to make a video related to the subject that I'm working on, and that is the graphic novel that I recently read called Lugosi, The Rise and Fall of Hollywood's Dracula. It was written and illustrated by Koren Shadmi, and it chronicles the life of Bela Lugosi throughout the years of his acting, his personal life, and the ups and downs. Now, I recommend this graphic novel because it's well illustrated and written and showing us Lugosi's life in a personal level, and I also love all the black and white illustrations in the past when they show what Lugosi was previously in his life, while also the present day time when he's trying to recover in rehab. We see this sort of washed out brown colored look to it to show how he was kind of washed up at that point in his career. Now, the main thing I want to talk about is really the historical inaccuracies and semi-accuracies of the Universal monster movies. I'm not going to nitpick everything about the history of Bela Lugosi and his personal life, but rather so the Universal monster movies that he was in. When it came to the production of Dracula, it was fairly accurate, showing how Todd Browning, the director of the movie, would usually go off drinking in private because he was depressed with the fact that his friend, Lon Chaney Sr. had passed away, and cinematographer Carl Freund at times would be more of a director than Todd Browning was on the movie. I also like the fact that it showed how Lugosi unironically would look at himself in the mirror to try to stay in character by saying, "I am Dracula." But when it came to playing the monster in Frankenstein originally, it was true that Lugosi didn't want to play the character. However, the look of the monster looks way too similar to how Karloff looked in the movie. From what I've read, some sources would say that Lugosi's design looked more like he had long hair and more stripes on his shirts rather than the iconic look that Karloff would eventually have. And part of the reason why his test screen didn't go over very well was that on the walk over from the makeup room all the way to the soundstage, it was a hot summer of 1931, and some of the makeup on his face sort of melted, so he didn't really look as good as Karloff did in the makeup. It is true that Roland V. Lee was responsible for upping Lugosi's screen time in Son of Frankenstein. However, it's not necessarily the reason why Karloff feeling upstage was the reason why he stopped playing the monster. The reason why Karloff stopped playing the Frankenstein monster wasn't necessarily that he felt upstaged by Lugosi, but more so he didn't like how the studio was just making another Frankenstein movie just to make a profit and not to expand on the character that he was playing. He just felt like the character was uninteresting and wanted to move on with his career. Now, it is true that Lugosi did pass out during filming when he played the monster in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. However, the fact of showing him just falling to the floor is a little bit overly dramatic and inaccurate, because when he passed out, he was laying on a surgical chair when it happened, and it made sense that he passed out because he was 60 at the time, and he was wearing all the heavy costume and makeup, and working 12-hour days on filming usually was very taxing to him. I did find this part very jarring for the fact that it said that Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman marked the bitter end for Lugosi's run at Universal. Now, this is untrue because Lugosi would play Dracula again for Universal in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Now, I know this is technically outside the Universal monster movies, but this graphic novel kind of shows how Lugosi somewhat had a potty mouth of sorts, and this has been over-exaggerated by the movie Ed Wood.
Fuck you! Karloff does not deserve to smell my shit! That limey cocksucker can rot in hell for all I care!
And they definitely fudge things historically, either for plot conveniences or for comedic relief. But hey, I like the movie Ed Wood a lot. It's a great movie. I highly recommend it nonetheless. Despite the historical inaccuracies, I highly recommend Lugosi despite the historical inaccuracies because it's well illustrated and it's entertaining too to read. So this is Tyler from Encoder Reviews. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope to make a lot more in the future. Please like and subscribe.